that growl has stuck with me. I hear it in dreams. Yeah, not definitive. I still don't, and I still don't, I don't necessarily believe that there's a giant hominid in the forest, but that was very bizarre. And at the very least, there was something very weird happening. That there was a size 24 shoeless man
Right.
at like 12, 1300 feet elevation.
20, 30 yards away was this thing peeking over this pine bush.
It was a large, hairy animal, dark brown, black hair.
All of a sudden, this creature let out I want to call it a blood-curdling, growling, howling scream.
That's when I realized it wasn't my friend that had snuck up on me.
Dude, all the branches that are broken off are red.
That's crazy. There's no medulla.
Okay, there you go. Take off. Alrighty. Well, I leave Mateo. He's going to take off and go adventuring for about a month in the San Luis Valley area. He's going to be in West Cliff for a little while, and I know his plan is to hike from West Cliff up over the mountain to Crestone and points beyond. And so that'll be very exciting. And so coming up here right now is a Google Meets meeting I had with Mateo and Brutus, his friend. They were up by Cripple Creek and had and experienced something pretty crazy. Heard a lot of crazy sounds one night, and it really impacted Brutus pretty deeply. So I'm going to let him tell his story, but stay tuned. That's what's coming up right now, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks. Cheers.
Hey there, this is Glenn with Modern Explorer, and I have the honor of interviewing Mateo and Brutus, his friend. These guys have been adventuring for a while, and they're going to tell some really cool stories where Brutus here has seen and heard some things that he never thought he'd see before. So I don't want to get into this too much further, but I'm going to let Mateo start off the story and tell us what happened. What, how do you guys know each other, and how long? Tell me what's going on.
Oh, hey, hello everyone. Sure, you know that I like to go in the woods a lot already, based on this channel, and sometimes I have company, and someone that's come with me, especially recently, the last couple years, is Brutus here. We met some years ago, and I took him on one of the hardest adventures that I normally go on. That's a tough hike, It was kind of like a test trial to see how well he would do, and it is a challenge. It's even a challenge for me, and I'm pretty capable out in the woods. But we went to this area that on the first try took me 3 days with the main pack to get on, and I had to eventually build like a trail, move all the debris from the path and create a path in order to get there in 2 days. So if you're going just day hike, you can probably do it in one. But if you take your stuff there and actually go explore this, it takes normally around 2 days unless you're really pushing. And so we basically got up there, and I think it was on the first day we're hiking to our first campground, and we see these bear prints coming one way, and then the other way we see this one track that doesn't look anything like the bear prints at all. It doesn't have it has a very narrow heel like the bear prints, but this track has a very wide heel, and it isn't the way it's double stepping. But I'll let Brutus talk about it, because he knew about my experiences, and I think he was, he didn't know where to put it, but so this is kind of his story unfolding as he gets more and more anecdotal, personal evidence that these hominids might indeed exist. So I'll let Brutus kind of share his reactions and thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, after we first stumbled onto those large footprints, it was just kind of that's weird. How did those get there? They're a lot bigger than mine, and I have a size 15, and they're also pretty deep into the ground. And they're also pretty deep into the ground. And so we basically got up there, and I think he was, he knew about my experiences, and I think he was, he didn't know where to put it. He didn't know where to put it. But it was, they're just prints out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm there, and I was also wearing minimalist shoes at the time. So somebody else could have been there at some point in time with a little bit bigger foot. But then as we proceeded from there, the next couple of days, and we were moving up to the kind of natural complex that we were heading to. I ended up falling behind you while we were going up a really long, steady ways in a fairly open meadow with a cliff and the huge rock formations off on the right. Yeah, for context, as I'm falling back behind Mateo, I'm maybe about 60 yards, maybe 70 yards back, and he's up kind of at the upper part of this game trail that we're moving on. And I mean, just earlier that day, we had to kind of duck and cut our way through some heavy moose destroyed forest. We were very remote, even though you could almost see the city from where we were at. Like, it's distance from between us, so much elevation, so many mountains between us and there. As I'd fallen back, this growl just echoes out, and it really made me start running. Like, immediately, I knew I couldn't get armed quick enough to get my backpack off, and it was total fight or flight. And I realized, like, in that moment, like, I had to run. So I started screaming. Mateo, turn around, get your gun out. I didn't know at the time if it was a bear, like what exactly was happening. And by the time I got to you, there was nothing behind me. That stuck out. And then after that, maybe not even a mile away, after reaching that huge natural complex, seeing a barefoot footprint, humanoid footprint that it dwarfs mine. And then just being able to pop out a picture of it next to mine. Like, there can't be that many people on the planet with feet that much larger than mine, and to be out here in this remote place that at a minimum is like a good 9-hour no gear like hike, like if you were in really good shape. Yeah.
Not sure this is what I think it is, but that's some big steps. Dang, this is far up here. Definitely looks like a foot, and it's been definitely over a year since I've been up here last. And there's another one right there. Oh man, did we find another track here? Oh dang.
That's where we started, I guess.
Well, so you guys have separated by, you said 40, 50 yards?
Maybe a bit more.
Maybe a bit more. So now, did you guys go two different directions, or were you on the same trail?
Yeah. So basically what had happened was, like, this is a really steep hill, but it goes kind of like to like this plateau, like on top, like maybe like 60 or 70 yards away. You know, it is some distance, but if you look down, you could see the person. But I had gone like there's this ravine right here, and then here's this hill, and then way up here is like this like little plateau. And so what I had done is I had just gone straight up, just straight up, like beelined it right to this thing. And Brutus kind of went around like this in a zigzag to make it, because it's a tough hike, right? Like it's harder. So he actually went around over here to where the cliff face is that overlooks the valley. And I just went completely the other side. Like, I just didn't even get on the other side of this little hill that he went around to get over. So I wasn't seen with whatever was down there, like may not even seen me. I get up to this plateau, and I put my pack down. I'm resting for a while. And then I remember, like, I come back down, like, over to him to see where he's at. And I look down and I see him like running, like, and screaming, like for help. And I'm like, what's going on? And I can't get to my rifle very quickly because my pack's a ways back. But I come and see how he's doing, and have him talk to me. And he's definitely frightened, right? Something happened. I didn't hear anything, but I may have been too far away, because I was over the hill, when it happened before I popped down enough to actually see him in this, like him doing a sprint up the hill. All right, so we've just been hiking up through this really unique area that's far off in the wilderness, and Bruce just had an experience that kind of frightens him. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, we were walking up, and I was a bit ways back, and I heard a real deep growl come from about my 4 o'clock, and I got really startled and started running up the hill as fast as I could, which wasn't very fast, and it was a real primal fear, real instinctual fear drive away to get towards my companion and try to defend, but try to get to him first. And he ended up coming over the hill about 4 seconds after I heard the growl, and it's pretty horrifying. I was probably shaken in shock for about 7 minutes, 8 minutes.
So did you feel it, like the
Yeah, I felt my whole body,
like the vibration of the roar?
Yeah.
Or growl? Was it a roar or like a growl? Okay.
Yeah.
And it made you strike like fear almost?
Yeah, very much.
Were you like frozen for a second, or were you able to react pretty quickly?
I immediately started to move.
Awesome.
It was very scary.
Yeah, I bet. Well, hey, you're safe now. And if something else happens, we'll be on the lookout. Massive tracks that we found, which I thought was insane, right? Like, it's one thing just to find one track that looks like a large foot, like it could be from the North American hominid, but it's a whole other thing to see it, 2 times in the same area, right? Like on the same field trip, then we see an even better one where you can actually see a trackway of this thing moving through. And that one's even bigger than, like way bigger than Brutus's foot from the first one that we saw.
So it wasn't a single track, it was a track way.
The second one was. The first one was just a single track. The second one was like a trackway of 3 or 4 where you could distinctively see these tracks.
How far was
Yeah, I
the
want to
stride on
say
that?
bigger than mine.
Yeah, the stride, yeah. So it was far. It was really impressive. And then the fact that he had just had this growl that really did sound like the historical infrasound that you hear about.
Well, that's why I want to drill
Sasquatch.
down. I definitely want to drill down on it. So, okay, first off, is this daytime? Is this nighttime? What is this?
This is the middle of the day.
Middle of the day. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And
look,
the other
It
thing
also
really
should be
quick-
said that to the right, when I'm going zigzagging to go up this hill, to our right is a huge rock cropping with a cliff, and like it would be very, like, when I first heard it, like as I'm trying to piece stuff together immediately afterwards, I immediately was like, this is probably a bear. I've never heard something growl like that. But it made sense that I could have easily snuck up on something on that overlook, where it would have like a huge view of a valley. It would
Okay,
have
so-
a huge view of.
so you're in a little valley. The cliff went up, or did the cliff go down?
So we are on the side of this mountain, this hill, going up like this, and off to the side is a rock cropping and a sheer drop, like not a sheer drop off, but a steep gradient.
Okay. And is that where you got the sense that this was coming from? Was down over that, over the edge?
Yeah, I haven't watched that video. I don't think since like you first posted it, but I think that if I recall correctly, it came directly from the direction of that rock cropping.
Because we went and explored it, and the neat thing about the rock cropping, as far as strategically and tactical location, is you could see all the ingress routes up to that point. But that's the thing. That's the most likely point something would come from, especially a person. But we didn't come from that. We came like through the forest and around it, so we wouldn't have been spotted because we weren't coming to, like the easiest way of like the easiest approach.
We
Interesting.
also came from a way that we had water stored in a way that an animal wouldn't necessarily go that way because we were avoiding water routes.
Okay. Okay. So it's a completely unusual direction of any kind of movement. You guys were coming from that way.
Yeah, it
And-
wasn't the expected route that you'd expect something to come up that like valley.
Wow. So to the growl, can you describe this growl at all? I mean,
Mateo's told me a little bit as the encounter after I described it. The way I recall it, like the thing was like it was right there. even though like I had a visual, like there wasn't something right there, unless it was, I don't know how to describe that. I knew that there wasn't something within 25 feet of me, but the way that I heard that growl, it sounded like it was feet from me. I had like the knife out, like
Yeah.
when it happened, I thought that like an animal was on me, and like I was about to have to fight it, like there was nothing else. It was very confusing because even though like it felt like I could feel it in my like inside, like it, like the way that bass kind of reverberates on stuff, it made it feel like I was in immediate danger, but there was no visual cue, and there was no place like where, like, not just the absence of a visual cue like an animal, also there wasn't like some place where an animal could be that I wouldn't be able to see it with it being very close. But and yet it felt like it was so close, the way that I perceived and like the way that it delivered to me, that I felt like I was in mortal danger. When Mateo got to me, because he came back down as he hears me screaming. I mean, I've given everything getting up this hill. This hill that I've been like struggling to make it up, I've now sprinted up with my 50-pound pack. Yeah. I mean, immediately that moment, trying to drop down, rearm myself as soon as Mateo's there, and there's some safety numbers. Like it if nothing else, it invoked a great amount of fear. And Mateo, like we hear animals in the forest, and I don't really get bothered by animal noises. I've spent a lot of time. I've heard mountain lions. I've heard mountain lions not growl, but like do their little roar thing. Where we were at the time, we were in an opening with a lot more grass than trees.
On the hillside,
yeah. But even like that, the way that the topography was there, like it would not have been it would not have been hard for something to get out of visual sight, up or down.
Okay. Well, to be terrified like that I've never been in that situation. I've been something happened, but I wasn't scared. I was like curious, but it wasn't that growl. And it sounds like you maybe surprised something when you were coming up from a totally different direction, and it just was warning you off.
Yeah, on it, I'm like, whether it was a bear or something a lot less likely, what in hindsight, I do believe that Mateo's initial assessment that I had stumbled upon something and scared it. Also, Mateo, it's worth noting, hikes much more quietly than I do.
Same with me.
Yeah, I hit a tree and I break the tree. Yeah.
So did you hear anything else other than the growl?
No, that day there was no hearing running.
At that event, did you hear any branches snap? Because if you scare an animal in the woods, they'll scamper off, and especially if they're scared, they'll bust things up as they're going. You didn't hear anything?
So the direction that the growl came from, what I heard it from was to my right and to the rear, and my initial turn was to take my left leg and put it uphill and start turning, while turning and looking over my right shoulder. I didn't see anything, and then after that, I didn't do a left way check, and I was already running. My mind, I immediately shot my eyesight to where I interpreted it coming from, but where it was at, there wasn't trees. Where I interpreted the growl coming from, it was actually just grass and rocks, and then over the cliff, over the steep gradient, at least past the rocks, are trees.
And
I think there was maybe 3 trees. No, actually, that's something that we did have a series of weird smells on that. But it's worth noting that day we had came across a lot of smells, and we know that we came across moose and moose and black bear scents throughout that day, because we were at one point we literally had to like crawl under these trees that a moose had just stampeded through after a storm had took down a lot of trees, and there was a lot of fur left over there. But in that wasn't that much further than that area. Maybe at the most 3/4 mile off. We were having a lot of musk that day, but there was a lot of musk around.
On musk, okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's a crazy story, but again, not definitive, but really strange.
Yeah, to me, like I've said, and Mateo knows, is like that growl has stuck with me. I hear it in dreams. I hear it in dreams.
Okay, so that's the first real story you've had. You've had other weird kind of experiences that I understand, but that's the main thing. But then just this last weekend, or very recently, you guys had something really crazy happen. Mateo, again, can you walk us into it and tell me your side, and then Brutus, can you tell me yours?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, there's another spot like that's just like in the middle of nowhere, kind of between Cripple Creek and Canyon City, up in those mountains, in those canyons. And it's an area that traditionally, like the Survival University, a school that teaches like survival, they'll come down for their 50-day class, and the last like 10 days they'll hike in there and then work on their primitive skill sets as the last challenge to see what they've learned. And a lot of times, like, I'll go down with them and just kind of be a part of it, because it's fun experience for me. I challenge myself. But on this particular time, Brutus had time to come and visit, so I didn't go with them, and we were going to meet them on the other side, which you have to go through this whole ranch, and you have to get access. You have to know like the owner to get to the BLM side. That's just in a super remote area that is blocked on the public access side by a whole private ranch. So I wait for Brutus to get in. We meet up at Cripple Creek, I think around 7 o'clock, and then we try to make it there as fast as we can on this dirt road, with him driving like a car to make it there before nightfall. And I'm also starting to get sick, so I'm like having less incentive. I'm feeling pretty tired. So we make it all the way over there just around dark. He has to park his car and jump in the Jeep for the last leg of the journey, because we've had this crazy rainstorms that have just changed the landscape, like just insane.
Yeah,
like taking out whole roads. And we get there, and he can already tell I'm tired, and like I'm sick. But he convinces me, like, let's go into the water, and play around, because he's brought this like massive net, and we both really like eating crawdads. So we're like, okay, let's do it. The water's not too bad.
So it's a stream.
It's a creek. It's a creek.
It's not a lake.
No, it's a creek, and there's plenty of water going through because of all the rain we've been having. And so we go into this water at night with our headlamps, and we're just having a good time. Like maybe I think we're maybe 45 minutes to an hour in there. All of a sudden, we hear this like loud whack, and it's really distinctive. And we both stop, and I look at each other, and we're like, and it's like, did you hear that? Yeah, I did. And it would sound like either like a wood hitting on like wood really hard, or like a big, I don't know. It could have been either one for me, my interpretation, but whatever it was loud and very distinctive, and coming from further down the creek and further down this canyon. And then Brutus, like, the comments after that happened, that he's been hearing things moving through like the brush. He doesn't know what they are, but he's been hearing them. And so after that, and I'm gonna let him take over and like kind of go through his perspective. I get tired because it's already like, I don't know, like 11:30. It's pretty late, and I'm like, well, I want to feel better, because I'm definitely coming down with something. So I tell him I'm going to bed, and then
and where do you go to bed?
I go to bed in my Jeep, because I have like a bed system inside the Jeep itself, and so I just pass out.
So you abandon Brutus.
Yeah.
And Brutus, so How are you set up for camping? What do you do here?
I'm about 40 feet to the north of Mateo's Jeep in a cabin, not a cabin, that'd be really lovely, a hammock between two trees with a tarp over top and a sleeping bag in there. When Mateo says that I believed I heard things moving through, there was probably like 5 twig snaps that you and I had like heard on the south bank of the creek. Mostly like after we actually moved to that second place where we went crawdadding. The wood, like the sound, when you first said it like that, like it was the pop of the mouth, it didn't register with me as much until you stopped for a moment, and I was just thinking on it. I was like, I don't know if that's quite it. And then you said like it sounded like something banged a piece of wood against a tree, and I was like, yeah, that is exactly what we just heard. Like that's exactly what it sounded like to me, at least. After you'd gone to bed because you were really tired, it was a full moon. It was the full moon night, and I had been working a lot, so I elected to break out my fly fishing rod and just go back out and cast. I ended up hearing the noise again from a very different direction, from the northeast of us, or I guess more the north of us. And it was definitely louder than the first, and it was like a little creepy. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing because at the same time, it is a full moon, and your eyes are able to command a lot of the landscape. And I am armed, so it wasn't quite as scary as it could potentially be. I just kind of was feeling like I don't want to really be out here. I feel like if I stay out in this creek a lot longer, I'd maybe stayed at this point maybe 45 minutes to an hour. About maybe like 40 minutes is when I heard the second sound, louder than the first from a different direction. I was like, I think I'm just gonna get out of here. I don't know if I don't know if I want anything weird to happen tonight. And I go to lay down, and I'm in the hammock, and I'm laying there, and I hear it from the same direction as the first one, loud as can be. Like I actually lifted up the tarp because I was sure that Mateo would have woken up. Like it's how loud it was, or at least like like stirred. And that was a little scary. It was. I would then connect the dots a couple days later while we were replaying this back. At the beginning of that evening, when we first got there, right before the sun went down, right as the sun was going down, there was a lot of mosquitoes at our camp, and so Mateo quickly started up a fire, and there was somebody had been segmenting a log by just slowly pushing it into the fire and burning a little bit more of it. And I'm just rowdy, and I'm out there, and I'm like, this is, we can just break it up and have some actual firewood. And I connected with it that about an hour, maybe like an hour and a half before we first hear like what now in hindsight sounds exactly like a big stick being beat up against a tree. I had grabbed this huge log, and
How big
very about this, Mateo?
Yeah, I would say probably like its base is about that big.
Yeah, at least like an average of like 6 inches in diameter, and very solid. And I just start banging it as hard as I can against the rock, and I break off 2 pieces like that big. And it wasn't very easy. It was a lot harder to break than I anticipated. But I would connect that, like those sounds were so similar. The only difference being that mine sounded like a giant log being hit against a huge rock, and the other one sounded like a huge log being hit against a huge log. Yeah, it was very weird. I don't know if I've done. yeah, I don't know if, I guess it's possible that there could have been somebody else. Maybe heard me bang a log against a giant rock, and it's not something a small person would do. Not as loud as we heard it even the first time, but
Was
it's
the
really
weather
weird.
like that? What was the weather like that? Is Whitney?
The first night we were calm. It was actually really clear. We were between storms. River was running, the creek was running high, but no.
No wind.
We might have had some breezes the first
Yeah.
night. I know that later on that night, like in the AM, the early AM, there would be some wind gusts that blew me around the hammock, but nothing at that time. The third one particularly, after Mateo and me, after the three of us had talked about it, and I had spent some time and I connected that it was so close proximity time wise to me breaking that log. If I were to make a noise as loud as that last one, I would have to put every single thing, every single ounce of my 6.5 foot tall body into making a noise that loud.
Wow.
But only, not only that, aside from it being loud, it was just really unique. Like not like something hitting something else, like someone hitting something against something else.
Okay. And so do you think it had gotten closer, or was it just louder?
It did not appear to be closer. If anything, it did. If anything, I would judge it to have increased each time to the next, each 3 times, increase in distance away from our camp.
But still getting louder as it's going away. Wow,
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
because if I heard it right, and the second one was from the north, it would have had to be at least behind tree line. I mean, above that, right? It would have had to be like literally 400 or 500 feet away. Whereas the first one, it didn't sound very loud, but you could have easily convinced me that it happened within like 200 feet of us, 100 feet of us, and I could have believed it from the sound.
And then the last one, even further away, is your sense.
The last one sounded like it just filled the whole valley that we were in. Like I don't want to say that it was like booming, because it's not like lightning cracking. It's more like a drum being hit.
Wow. So you've heard this last one. You're laying in your hammock. I sleep in a hammock too, and that's scary as all get out because you're a burrito.
Yeah, I put one in the chamber. No, there was, even that night, I don't know if it was something was running that night. And the bizarre thing is that, like I said, it was a full moon night, and we're far away from the city. The whole landscape is glowing in that way that a full moon makes it does. There's a point that I after the third word knock, I felt like I heard something like walking / kind of trotting, and I was like, what the hell is that? And at one point it sounded like it came between my hammock and Mateo's Jeep. At that point I was like, this is a little fucked up. I don't know if it's just a deer going around or what. And I peeked out I peeked out armed, and I didn't see a thing. I could see as far as I could see, as far as my eye would be able to see, and I didn't see anything moving. It was weird.
That is weird. Now, when I set up my hammock, my awning really blocks my view a lot, so you had to actually lift the awning to look underneath it to see.
Yeah.
Through.
Yeah, and I could see through the hammock that I had, like through the actual hammock itself. But at nighttime, because I was trying to like kind of peek from the bottom of the hammock, but you just couldn't see very well through it.
Yeah. And then, so did you get any sleep that night? Did anything else happen after that? Did you get any sleep?
I passed out. Oh yeah. I was coming off like, I think 6 days straight of work. I was absolutely exhausted. And this before those 6 days straight of work, I had COVID. So this was, I passed out a lot later than I would have liked to that night. I will admit, having Mateo's Jeep there in a way that I don't like to admit that he's often right, it lends a level of just, okay, if anything too weird happens, I can go get in that Jeep.
Right. So you wake up in the morning. Did you see anything weird? I mean, anything else happen on the rest of the trip?
No. Did we? I don't think that anything else. Did we find a print?
No, I don't remember anything else happening. But what did because originally, right, we were planning on going up and meeting the rest of the students coming down, but because I felt sick, we decided to stay there. But what happened that for that night is it just rained super hard, and like we went to bed early.
Yeah,
It was
I
just
actually
raining so hard.
I passed out at 7 that night, and I slept till 7 a.m. the next morning.
Okay.
Torrential downpours. Yeah. Well, I guess for the first bit.
I actually stayed up later that night, up until like 9 or 10, and I was walking outside. I didn't hear anything, but I wasn't there very long. I just like hung out for maybe like a half an hour to 45 minutes before.
Sure. And you guys didn't see any no eye shine or anything like that, or?
No, I mean I didn't, but I honestly wasn't looking. It's come to a point in my life where they're just something that's normal out there in the woods. It's not like that terrifying experience of the unknown like it used to be.
I was pretty terrified.
Well, I would be too.
I don't really like the idea of something that much larger and stronger, faster than me being in the forest with me.
Sure. No, that's my hesitance for sleeping in a hammock, because I'm old. I don't like sleeping on the ground. Hammocks are really comfortable, but I feel like a big burrito in a hammock. And I've talked to a couple of the witnesses who were up by Cottonwood Lake, heading up towards Taylor Reservoir, up by, what pass is that? Cottonwood Pass, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And they said they were sleeping in the hammock and something came up and caressed the bottom of the hammock when they were sleeping in it, and 2 nights in a row. So, as comfortable as I am, it's one thing to think they're mountain lions and they're bears, right? You can kind of wrap your mind around that. But to have something that leaves 22-inch tracks, bipedal, walking around, smacking trees, and then coming up and caressing my hammock, that doesn't set well with me. So I don't know how I'd do with that.
I can definitely say that I kept on thinking, the wood knocks made me think a lot about the growl, and I kept on just every time I would wake up that first night, because I woke up a lot the first night, I would just think, man, I'm gonna open my eyes, and there's gonna be a huge ass ape right there underneath my rain fly. It didn't happen, but
yeah. So has this changed your perspective of going out in the woods, Brutus?
It makes me really fascinated that there's a chance that it might have been responding. Yeah. I think that as I go out more, I will definitely probably bang a lot more logs in the trees.
Oh, so you're gonna push it a little bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I figure if this was just, I mean, because by the way, we're not exactly where there are no people. Like, this could have been a human. Like, I mean, it's crazy. They were strong and wasting a lot of time and out in the middle of fucking nowhere, but it very well could have been a person. I would be fascinated to see if there's other ways, or if that's replicable in ways that something can respond out there. Because yeah, that is pretty wild that something might have heard me banging a log onto a rock and recognized it as a way to communicate.
It's one thing when you get one person telling a story, you can kind of write that off, right? It's just a story. But then you get two people telling kind of the same story, maybe in the same location. And then you get three, and then it starts building this puzzle. And it's hard to deny that all these people aren't experiencing something. And sometimes it's just innocuous, just a sound in the woods, or you catch a glimpse of something. Sometimes it's scary, or you get growled at. And other people see things, and other times it's rocks get thrown at them. So it's such a wide range of experiences, and I love talking to people and getting their stories because it builds this picture. And certainly there is something going on around in Fremont County, Colorado, which I never thought there was. I thought this was a Pacific Northwest deal. So thanks for sharing. Well,
Mateo said something right after the first wood knock. Here we are doing something that they can so relate to. We're in the middle of this creek, in the middle of the night on a full moon, catching crawdads.
Well, what'd you think? I thought that was pretty cool, especially that Mateo was involved in that. But Brutus, man, he really must have experienced something, and I'm glad he shared. So again, Brutus, thank you for being transparent and opening up about that. It really helps because other people have experienced exactly what you did too, but they haven't shared it, and a lot of times they're carrying it inside. So again, thank you for sharing your time and your story. And if you or anybody else has had an encounter, let us know. encounters@modernexplorer.me. I'd love to document your story, whether it's in person, on site, or over a Zoom call or Google Meets. So thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing from you. Cheers.
Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action, and with a little time, just be patient, make a statement, try to enjoy your life. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless.